What if the silence that just fell over you is not depression and not exhaustion, but the most important thing that has ever happened to you? There is a moment in the life of every deeply feeling person when something inside them goes quiet. Not angry, not broken, just done. You know the feeling because it may be happening to you right now. One day you simply stop. You stop reaching. You stop fixing. You stop carrying the weight of people who never once asked how heavy it was. Schopenhauer understood this silence better than almost anyone who ever lived. He did not see it as the end of a sensitive person. He saw it as the moment they finally become untouchable. And the people around you will be frightened by it, because when you stop absorbing them, you stop being useful to them in the one way they always relied on. You went quiet. And quiet, it turns out, is where your power was hiding the whole time. To understand why you go quiet, you first have to see what brought you to the edge. You were never the kind of person who simply felt things. You absorbed them. You walked into a room, and within seconds, you had read the whole atmosphere. You knew who was angry before they spoke. You felt the tension under the polite words at the dinner table. You carried both sides of every argument, even the side that was hurting you. Schopenhauer described human beings as creatures driven by a blind, restless will. Most people are pushed through life by that force without ever noticing it. They want, they grasp, they demand, and they hand their discomfort to whoever is soft enough to take it. And you were soft enough. You were the one who took it. You became the shock absorber for everyone around you. Your mother handed you her anxiety. Your friends used you as a free therapist. The people you loved treated your patience like an endless resource that cost you nothing. And here's the part that should disturb you. You never complained. You called it your purpose. You believed that because you could feel so much, you were obligated to carry so much. You wore your exhaustion like proof that you were a good person. Think about where that belief came from. As a child, you were praised for being understanding. You were rewarded every time you swallowed your own needs to keep someone else comfortable. Every time you absorbed someone's anger to stop a fight, somebody called you mature. So you learned a quiet, dangerous lesson. You learned that your value came from how much of yourself you were willing to give away. Schopenhauer wrote a line that should land in your chest. He said that we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. You did exactly that. You filed yourself down until almost nothing of you was left, and you called it kindness. But something in you was keeping records. Underneath the warmth, your mind was cataloging everything. Every manipulation, every betrayal, every time someone took your generosity and gave you nothing back. You knew exactly which words triggered the guilt in your family. You understood the precise moves people made to avoid responsibility. You could predict a manufactured crisis before it arrived. You had mapped every game being played around you with frightening accuracy. And yet you never once used it. You never weaponized what you knew. You just kept absorbing, kept giving, kept telling yourself that this was love. That is the split Schopenhauer would have recognized instantly. On the surface, you looked fine. You looked like the strong one. But underneath, resentment was building like pressure in a sealed jar. Not the loud kind that gets spoken and released. The silent kind that slowly poisons your sense of who you are. The breaking point never comes from a small thing. It comes from betrayal. Real betrayal, from someone you protected and defended and loved without conditions. You know the shape of it. Maybe you discovered the lie after years of holding that person together. Maybe you found out what they said about you behind your back after a lifetime of being the glue that kept everyone connected. Maybe you finally saw the truth about someone you had defended to everyone else. But the deepest cut was not what they did. The deepest cut was the realization that you saw it coming. Your intuition had been screaming for months, maybe years, and you silenced it. You chose to believe in the version of them that lived only in your hope. That is the betrayal that actually breaks you, not theirs, yours. You betrayed yourself to keep the fantasy alive. You overrode your own instincts to protect a relationship that was quietly destroying you. Schopenhauer would call this the collapse of an illusion. You had been seeing people not as they were, but as you needed them to be. You painted goodness onto faces that never carried it, and when that paint finally peeled away, you did not scream. You did not fall apart the way everyone expected. You went quiet. Your eyes changed, not with tears, with clarity. The fog you had lived inside your whole life lifted, and for the first time you saw the people around you exactly as they were, without the soft distortion of your own hope. If this is landing on you right now, comment the words, "I went quiet," and keep listening, because the next part is where everything turns. Here is what happens after the silence falls. You stop performing. You stop managing everyone's moods. You stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for needing anything at all. You do not announce it. You do not make a speech. You simply stop holding up the dysfunction you have been carrying for years, and the systems built on your labor begin to wobble. The family that needed you to mediate now has to face each other directly. The partner who used you as a crutch can no longer pull the old reaction out of you. The friends who treated you as endless availability suddenly find a wall where the open door used to be. And the thing that frightens them most is that you are not even angry. Anger they could have worked with, anger they knew how to handle, because your anger always melted back into forgiveness and you always went back to carrying them. This is not anger. This is indifference to the games that used to run your life. They will test it. They will manufacture a crisis. They will play the victim. They will reach for guilt like a familiar tool, and it will not work. You will watch them try with a strange detached curiosity, the way you might watch weather move across a field. You have unplugged from the machine that ran on your energy, and it cannot start again without you. Schopenhauer had a parable for exactly this moment. He described a group of porcupines on a cold day. They huddle close for warmth, but their quills wound each other, so they move apart. Cold drives them together. Pain pushes them away until they find the one distance where they can bear each other without bleeding. And the person with enough inner warmth of their own, he said, can stay out of the huddle entirely. They do not need to crowd into the pile and get pricked just to feel something. That is what you are becoming. A person with enough warmth of their own that you no longer have to bleed for closeness. This is the part people misread as cruelty. They see you stop replying instantly. They see you let the call go to voicemail. They see you say no without a paragraph of justification. They watch you skip the gathering that always left you hollow and end the friendship that was only ever one direction and walk away from the person you spent years trying to save. And they call it cold. But you did not stop caring. You stopped caring about keeping relationships that required you to abandon yourself. You stopped caring whether you were liked by people who never valued you. You stopped caring about peace and systems that were only ever peaceful because you were quietly suffering to hold them. You finally understood what Schopenhauer spent his life trying to say. He wrote that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and that whoever does not love solitude will not love freedom, because only when he is alone is he truly free. You had never been free because you had never been alone with yourself long enough to find out who you were underneath all that service. Now you know. And the warmth you used to spray in every direction has become something selective. Not colder, more conscious. You no longer leak energy to anyone who demands it. Your presence feels different to people now. Grounded, harder to move. You still feel everything. You simply choose where to send it. Watch how it changes everything around you. At work, you do your job well, and you stop doing the jobs of 3 other people. You stay pleasant, and you stop absorbing the office drama that was never yours. The manager who relied on you to overextend now meets someone who works their hours and goes home, whole. In your family, you stop hosting every holiday and mediating every feud, not with a confrontation. You simply become unavailable for the role you were assigned before you were old enough to refuse it. And when they say you have changed, you nod, because you have. You finally stopped setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. In love, the change is the deepest. The partner who counted on your endless forgiveness now meets accountability. The behavior you tolerated for years is simply no longer tolerated, and you do not explain why anymore. You just remove yourself from what violates your peace. Some people rise to it. They realize they were standing next to someone rare, and they choose to become worthy of you. Those relationships turn into something real, built on respect instead of one person carrying the other. And some people cannot rise to it. They miss the version of you that asked for nothing, and when their old tricks stop working, they leave to find someone else to drain. And you let them go without the agony you expected, because you finally see the leaving for what it is: protection, not loss. Schopenhauer would not have been surprised by any of this. He believed most suffering comes from wanting the world and other people to be something they are not. The moment you stop demanding that, the moment you see people clearly and stop projecting your hope onto them, a strange calm arrives. The world stops being able to ambush you because you stop pretending it was kinder than it is. This is not bitterness. A bitter person is still hooked on what was taken from them. You are not hooked anymore. You can still feel another person's pain. You can still read a room in a single breath. But those signals no longer command you. You have become the one who decides instead of the one who is decided for. And here is what should give you hope. People who reach this state become almost impossible to manipulate. You spot the flattery that comes too fast. You feel the false warmth before it gets close. You recognize the person who is performing care, and you simply do not engage. Your clarity works like a filter you do not even have to operate. The dishonest grow uncomfortable around you without knowing why, and the genuine feel safe with you for the first time, because they can tell you see them and you are not pretending otherwise. You could use all of it for revenge. You know these people's weak points better than they know them themselves, and you will not. Not because you are weak, but because you genuinely no longer care to. You will just take the toxic ones out of your life and keep walking. That restraint is not softness. It is the quiet strength of someone who has nothing left to prove. So understand what this silence really was. The day you stopped caring about holding up everyone else was the day you started caring for your own soul. That is not selfishness. Schopenhauer knew the difference. You cannot give from an emptiness, and a life spent as a martyr saves no one, least of all you. You did not lose your humanity when you went quiet. You found your center. You did not become cold. You became clear. You did not stop loving. You finally learned to love yourself with the same fierce devotion you used to give away to people who never returned it. Your sensitivity was never a debt you owed the world. It was a gift, and a gift is meant to be protected and given to the few who have earned it, not poured out for anyone who holds out their hands. The day you went quiet was not the end of your story. It was the moment you finally belonged to yourself. If this reached you, leave a like. I read every comment.